Okay, so picture this. A sunny Hawaiian beach, the sound of waves, um, crashing a
Oh,
newly married couple. They're dancing, they're laughing. Sounds idyllic, right?
absolutely.
But this image kind of takes on this sinister tone. When you learn the groom, Chad Daybell, had just buried his
Yeah.
previous wife,
Right.
Tammy, only 17 days before. And to make things even more chilling, the children of his new bride, Lori Vallow, are nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
So this week, we're going to take a deep dive into the first week of Chad Daybell's trial, a case that has really captivated the nation with its bizarre twists and turns.
It's truly a case that is stranger than fiction.
Yeah,
And the opening statements alone set the stage for a legal battle that's as much about perception as it is about evidence.
absolutely.
Yeah.
The prosecution came out swinging, portraying Chad as this manipulative mastermind who uses his apocalyptic beliefs to seduce Lori and eliminate anyone who stood in their way. They meticulously laid out a timeline, starting with their meeting at a religious conference.
Yeah.
And it quickly became clear this wasn't just a chance encounter. They were drawn to each other, and their relationship escalated rapidly.
What's intriguing is how the prosecution wove together the seemingly disparate threads of Chad's life, his apocalyptic novels, his unusual religious beliefs, and the string of suspicious deaths surrounding him to create a narrative that paints him as a calculating and dangerous individual.
Yeah, it's like a real-life thriller, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then the defense threw a curveball. They presented Chad as a victim manipulated by Lori and her brother Alex Cox. They point to Alex's history of violence. He even tasered Lori's ex-husband Joseph Ryan back in 2007.
Oh, wow.
And of course, there's the tragic death of Charles Vell, Lori's fourth husband, who was shot and killed by Alex in 2019. The defense argues that Alex was Lori's enforcer,
Right.
always ready to resort to violence, and Chad was simply caught in their web.
It's a bold strategy, attempting to shift the blame entirely onto Lori and Alex. They're essentially saying that Chad was naive, a pawn in their game. They even downplayed his apocalyptic writings as mere fiction,
Yeah.
arguing they had no bearing on his actions.
It's hard to know what to believe at this point. But one thing's for sure, the courtroom was buzzing with tension, especially during the detective's testimony. He described the gruesome discovery of J.J. and Tylee's remains in Chad's backyard, walking the jury through the excavation process step by step.
Wow.
They were even shown graphic photographs of the scene, the state of decomposition, the duct tape used to bind the children. It was a heart-wrenching moment.
You could see the impact on the jurors' faces.
Yeah.
Some were visibly shaken, others were fighting back tears.
Yeah.
It was a stark reminder of the human cost of this twisted tale.
And all the while, Chad sat there seemingly detached. There were moments when he appeared to be trying to force emotion, but it came across as insincere. It made me wonder what was going through his mind as these horrific details were lugged bare.
Right.
Was he truly unaffected, or was he trying to manipulate the jury?
It's a question that goes to the heart of this case. Is Chad a cold, calculating killer who can compartmentalize his emotions? Or is he, as the defense claims, a man deeply affected by these events but struggling to express his grief in a way that seems authentic?
Then came the cross-examination, and let me tell you, the tension in the courtroom was palpable.
Oh, I bet.
Defense attorney John Pryor took an aggressive approach, grilling the lead detective, trying to poke holes in his testimony and sow seeds of doubt in the jurors' minds.
Pryor's strategy was clear: to undermine the detective's credibility and raise questions about the thoroughness of the investigation.
Right.
He suggested that the police rushed to judgment, focusing solely on Chad while ignoring other potential leads. He even highlighted what he perceived as inconsistencies in the handling of evidence, questioning why certain crucial pieces like audio or video recordings were missing.
One of the most striking moments was when Pryor attempted to downplay the attempted shooting of Tammy Daybell. Remember, just weeks before her death, someone fired a paintball gun at her in her driveway. Tammy was terrified, but Pryor tried to frame it as a harmless prank, even citing an email Tammy sent to friends describing the incident.
Wow.
He seemed to be suggesting that if Tammy didn't take it seriously, why should the jury?
It was a clever tactic, attempting to shift the perception of this event from a menacing threat to a mere annoyance. It raises the question, what is the significance of this incident in the grand scheme of things? Was it a failed attempt on Tammy's life or just a bizarre coincidence?
And speaking of bizarre, it turns out that John Pryor himself has a bit of a checkered past. He has a misdemeanor battery conviction for an incident involving a woman in his office. Now, I'm not saying that this directly relates to the case, but it certainly raises eyebrows, especially considering the defense's strategy of painting Chad as a victim.
It's an interesting parallel, isn't it? And it adds another layer of complexity to an already convoluted case. But perhaps the most unsettling revelation this week was the unwavering support Chad is receiving from his children.
Right.
4 out of his 5 children firmly believe he's innocent.
It's almost unbelievable, isn't it? To think that his own children, who presumably knew him well, could believe he had nothing to do with these horrific crimes, despite the mounting evidence against him.
It really speaks to the power of family loyalty and the complexities of belief. They even go so far as to believe the Rexburg police are involved in a conspiracy to frame their father, adding another layer of intrigue to this already multifaceted case.
It's hard to wrap your head around, isn't it? And then, of course, there's the elephant in the room, or rather, the missing person from the courtroom, Lori Vallow herself. She and her family were noticeably absent from Chad's trial, which is a stark contrast to her trial, where Chad was always present.
This raises so many questions.
Right.
What is Lori's current stance? Does she still believe in Chad's innocence, or has his betrayal changed her perspective?
It's a real head-scratcher. During her own trial, Lori vehemently defended Chad, maintaining his innocence. But now that he's seemingly thrown her under the bus, we're left wondering what's going through her mind.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating dynamic, to say the least. We have Chad, who once seemed so devoted to Lori, now claiming she was the mastermind behind it all.
Right.
And we have Lori, who fiercely defended Chad during her own trial, now silent, her motives and thoughts remaining a mystery. It's like we're watching a game of chess, with each player making strategic moves, trying to outmaneuver the other,
Yeah.
and the stakes couldn't be higher. We're talking about the lives of 2 innocent children
Right.
and potentially others who were caught in this web of deceit.
Absolutely. As we head into the second week of Chad Daybell's trial, the question on everyone's mind is, will the jury believe the defense's claims? Can they be convinced that this seemingly ordinary man, a father and author, was nothing more than a pawn in Lori and Alex's sinister game?
Or will they see through what the prosecution is presenting as a carefully constructed facade, a man who used his charisma and beliefs to manipulate those around him, leading to a series of tragic events?
The upcoming weeks will be crucial. The prosecution needs to solidify their narrative, presenting a compelling case that leaves no room for doubt. They need to convince the jury that Chad was not only involved, but that he was the driving force behind these horrific acts.
And the defense needs to continue chipping away at the prosecution's case, highlighting any inconsistencies or weaknesses in their arguments. They'll likely call witnesses who can speak to Lori and Alex's manipulative tendencies and history of violence, bolstering their claim that Chad was a victim of their machinations.
But what about Chad's children? Their unwavering belief in their father's innocence is a perplexing element of this case. Could they be called to testify? And if so, what impact will their testimony have on the jury?
That's a question that's been swirling in my mind as well. Will their steadfast loyalty to their father bolster the defense's argument, painting him as a loving and devoted parent who couldn't possibly commit such heinous acts?
Or will their unwavering belief, even in the face of mounting evidence, make the jury question their objectivity? Could it even backfire on the defense, making the jury wonder if Chad was somehow able to manipulate his own children into believing his version of events?
And then there's the lingering question of Lori Vallow's absence. Will she remain silent throughout Chad's trial? Or could she make a surprise appearance, potentially turning the entire case on its head?
Her silence is deafening. It's hard to imagine she wouldn't want to be present to fight for the man she once declared her soulmate. Is she strategizing with her lawyers, waiting for the opportune moment to make her move? Or has she finally realized the depth of Chad's betrayal and decided to distance herself from him entirely? It's a wild card that adds another layer of uncertainty to an already unpredictable trial. And as we wait to see how this complex legal drama unfolds, I keep coming back to one thought. How well do we truly know anyone? This case has shaken me to my core. It's a stark reminder that even those closest to us can harbor secrets and motivations we never fully comprehend.
Absolutely. It's a chilling thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
This case forces us to confront the uncomfortable reality that the line between good and evil, between normalcy and depravity, can be incredibly thin. And it begs the question, what would it take for us to question the innocence of someone we love? What would it take for us to see the darkness lurking beneath the surface?
Yeah, it is. It's a chilling thought, and one that I think a lot of us are grappling with as we follow this trial. We're all searching for answers, trying to make sense of how something so horrific could happen. But maybe the most unsettling aspect of this case is that there may not be any easy answers.
Right.
Human nature is complex, and the motivations behind these kinds of acts of evil can be difficult, if not impossible, to really understand. Exactly, and I think that's what makes this deep dive so compelling.
Right.
It's not just about uncovering, the facts of the case, but also about exploring the darker aspects of human psychology.
Mhm.
It forces us to confront these uncomfortable truths about the potential for darkness that exists within us all.
We started this deep dive asking whether Chad Daybell was a mastermind or a pawn.
Right.
And as we've kind of dissected the evidence and the arguments presented in this first week of his trial, that question still lingers.
Yeah.
But maybe the answer isn't so black and white. Maybe it's a combination of both.
It's certainly possible. Perhaps Chad was initially drawn into Lori's web of manipulation, seduced by her charisma and their shared beliefs. But at what point did he become an active participant in their twisted plans? At what point did he choose to prioritize his desires over the well-being of others, even innocent children?
Right. These are questions the jury will ultimately have to grapple with as they deliberate. But I think for us as observers, this case serves as a powerful reminder to be vigilant, to question our assumptions, and to never underestimate the complexities of human nature.
It also highlights the importance of critical thinking, of not blindly accepting narratives that are presented to us, whether by the media, the legal system, or even those closest to us. We
Right.
must always strive to seek the truth, to weigh the evidence, and to form our own informed conclusions.
And as the trial continues, we'll be watching closely, eager to see what new revelations emerge and how the jury ultimately decides the fate of Chad Daybell. But beyond the legal ramifications, this case has really sparked, I think, a broader conversation about the nature of belief manipulation and the very essence of good and evil.
It's a conversation that will likely continue long after the verdict is delivered, forcing us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world around us. And that, in my opinion, is the true power of a deep dive like this. It's not just about understanding a specific case, but about using it as a lens to examine the complexities of human nature and the world we inhabit.
So as you continue to follow this trial, remember to think critically, to question everything, and to engage in meaningful discussions about the issues this case raises. We'll be back with more deep dives into captivating cases, exploring the intricacies of the human experience and the world around us. Until then, keep those minds curious and stay informed.